Hi, I'm Andreas Voniatis, and this is SEO in 2025.
Andreas, what's your number one SEO tip for 2025?
My number one SEO tip for 2025 would be to analyze the content that's attracting backlinks and not the backlink sources themselves.
Love it. Okay, so you're advocating determining why your competitor's content deserves links.
Correct. Yes, because I'm not saying completely ignore the sources. I just think your time is better spent seeing why content is attracting backlinks in the first place. Because if you want to see what would work for you, it's better to understand why that content is earning backlinks. If you think about it, a lot of sites can buy backlinks. Not that I advocate that, but if it's much better to try and earn those backlinks. If ever you were to try and do digital PR or improve the quality and the volume of backlinks to your website, then if you want your site to come through a core update or pass a manual review at Google, then it's going to make a lot more sense if you have a piece of content that's deserving of those backlinks rather than a piece of content that looks like an also ran compared to of the many other renditions or versions on the internet. And the reviewer can't see why yours would earn more backlinks than those other versions, right? So by analyzing what it is your competitors are doing to deserve those, what we call statistically supernormal backlinks, those volumes of backlinks and the quality of those backlinks, then by understanding what it is that makes it better, then you're in a much more powerful position to produce the kind of content that's deserving of those backlinks and would stand up to a manual review or a core update.
Statistically supernormal. That's the phrase of the day so far.
Yeah. So look, if you imagine, and I'll try not to be overly technical, but if you imagine a bell curve, which characterizes the normal distribution, right? You've got the average in the middle, which is where most of the data gravitates towards. Something that's supernormal would be, something that's much higher than normal, right? It's several degrees, further towards the extreme end. It's above average, but it's above average by a long mile. I'm deliberately trying to avoid technical statistical terms. So anything that's way above the average is what we would call supernormal, right?
So how do you determine the elements of your competitor's content that is likely to be the reason that they're attracting backlinks and the elements of content that you should perhaps be attempting to mimic a little bit in your content?
Yeah, so there's two levels you could do this. You could do it on a purely site level. You could take a major competitor. You could take all of their backlinks data using a tool like Majestic. You can look at the data in terms of site page level to look at the volume of the backlinks to that piece of content and the quality of those backlinks using things like trust flow. So what we do in statistics or data science is we look at, okay, well, what is the average, say, trust flow or the average volume of links to a URL? Okay, so that gives you an idea of what normal looks like.
Or on a particular domain name or just in general?
Any competitor domain name, let's say Coca-Cola.com or something like that. If they're a competitor and you're Pepsi, for example, you might want to look at Coca-Cola.com and go through Majestic and load up all the URLs and all the backlink data against all of those. And then by using data science, you can look at what is the normal number of URLs for that site, okay? And then you can start seeing which pages are way above normal in terms of the volume of the backlinks and the quality through, which pages are getting a lot, a super normal amount of trust flow compared to what the site normally gets, okay? And then, you have a very kind of scientific and automated way of being able to quickly identify the content that's achieving supernormal results for that website. And then it just makes it much easier for you to sort of save time and start analyzing what seems to be working really well for that competitor. And then there's level 2. So
just for 1 second on level 1, I love that tip because it's very specific, but it's super useful as well. But one other word that you've talked about beforehand as well was velocities. So the velocity of link building to that particular page. Are you looking to also determine which pages have had links consistently built to it, or is that not so important? Is it simply about quantity?
I think consistency is important, or consistent effort is probably more important, because let's face it, in the real world, sometimes and quite often, you get a piece of content like a press release or some news. It gets a massive kind of hit in the short term, and then it dies off, right? Well, when I talk about velocity, the way I think about it is I think about, well, what is the rate at which you're adding authority or backlinks to your website versus your competitors? Because as we all know in organic search, it's all relative. It's, if you say, oh, I'm adding tens or hundreds of backlinks per month, all genuine, quality because of the quality of your content, I'm managing to generate this interest in our content. Now, that's all very well, but is it enough? And that's why you need to look into how you're doing versus your competitors, because what if they're adding thousands or several hundreds? Suddenly you realize that actually it might not be enough. So this actually segues quite nicely, David, into a level 2 analysis where you don't just look at your competitor website, you look at your website and your competitors. So a multiple of competitors, and you don't look at what's normal for a given competitor, you look at what's normal for your market. And then, that's not just normal in terms of what would be considered normal or super normal for the amount of citation a piece of content attracts, but also what is normal in terms of the velocity of links being added to your website. What is the rate being added? What's the normal rate? And what content would achieve super normal rates of velocity in terms of authority and backlinks being added to your website for your market?
You also say that SEOs are chasing link sources and that they should be chasing target destinations instead. What does that mean?
Yeah, I mean, maybe I have a limited view of the world or impression, but generally speaking, a lot of the talk I'm exposed to in terms of SEOs trying to do off-page SEO is that they tend to look at their competitors' link sources, and then traditionally they would try and send an email and try and get them to link to their clients or their company's website instead, or website content. I was like, oh hi, yeah, you've done a blog post on 10 great tools for your project management. We've got a project management tool for the film industry here as well. Would you mind including us and linking to us? And I would imagine that's a very kind of low return activity. I'm not saying it doesn't provide any return. I just think that's a very kind of horse before cart way of achieving scale and effectiveness. Why not produce the content that attracts backlinks without even having to ask for it? That's far more powerful.
It is, yeah. I guess one slight concern about producing the content and having it live and then seeking backlinks is that if Google's already crawled that piece of content and then backlinks don't really start appearing until several weeks after the piece of content has been published, is that not a signal that perhaps the backlinks are a little bit more artificial?
Not necessarily, because you could produce a piece of content, but it's only, for example, you might produce something about, tree houses, for example. It just doesn't have to be in season, but you've produced it because from your audience listening data, you've determined that this is something that your target audience are interested in. And, it could be that, especially with the summer in Britain, that it's, everybody's on holiday. So, there's very little interest in journalists seeking data to write about their treehouse article or whatever. And then, 2 or 3 months down the line, it comes out in the news that Keir Starmer has asked this company to build tree houses for his daughters or whatever it is. And then suddenly it can really, explode. And suddenly you find that you're getting a load of backlinks just because of the timing, there's other elements, other unforeseen elements that can make your content look really good. So yes, you do need to produce the content, but you also need to tell the world about it as well. You still need to do the outreach. It's not quite build it and they will come, unless you're already a pretty highly authoritative site in the first place.
Yeah, that's a great example, because obviously e-commerce websites publish content all the time that are not necessarily seasonal and aren't necessarily receiving significant internal links, but a couple of weeks before they want to rank them, they're perhaps making the links more prominent and more likely to encourage backlinks when the content's several months old.
Yes, exactly. And we see that quite often where suddenly, a journalist or an influencer comes across a client piece of content and they love it. And suddenly, you've gone from chugging along to spike.
Yeah.
And the rest is history for that piece of content, at least for that campaign.
And something else that I'd like to quickly touch upon is internal search pages, because you're a fan of using that data as well. So what kind of data are you looking for from internal searches?
So internal search pages often get backlinks, especially for e-commerce and retail. That can give you a lot of intelligence, not only on your own e-commerce store as to, what category pages or what we call PLP, product listing pages. Is there a category page that you should have but don't have, that the internal search, URLs that are attracting backlinks indicate that you should be having a dedicated, category page to? So it can provide a form of intelligence for content you should have but don't have. And you could also do that for your competitors to see what it is what internal search results pages that are attracting backlinks on their website. If you have a product that matches that, is that something you could put on your website too? Not just for the sake of attracting backlinks, but also just commercially for making extra sales and revenues.
If an SEO is struggling for time, what should they stop doing right now so they can spend more time doing what you suggest in 2025?
I honestly suggest, stop working in spreadsheets. I'm not the only SEO person to say that. Start importing your data, start working with your SEO data in Python. I did write a book on data-driven SEO. I'm not saying you have to read this book, but
data-driven SEO with Python for audio listeners.
Exactly. So, you can read my book. There's other resources as well. Whilst my publishers and I would thank you for purchasing and reading the book, honestly, just stop working with SEO data in spreadsheets. Start importing your data in Python. Learn data science, because Python is a subset of data science. Python will help you work with the data, but you really need the statistical mathematical mindset in order to see the data from different angles, ask better questions, and extract a hell of a lot more insights so you understand what you're working with. Because SEO is a very data-rich endeavor, right? There's tons of data from your crawls, from your backlink tools like Majestic, and there's tons of data from analytics and other sources, search engine result pages and your competitors. It's data rich. So you need to, you're not going to take a bicycle to a motor race. You're going to take a motor car at the very least. Of course, with my clients, I want to take a helicopter, but that's another question. That's another discussion.
You talk about having a mathematical and statistical mindset. Is that necessary for every SEO nowadays, or is there still a place for a creative SEO, a strategic SEO, who's not necessarily that good at data science?
Well, that's really interesting, because I had a discussion with my daughter and she was saying how she loves the English language because she finds it more creative. But I said, well, you're more creative in English as a subject because you know the grammar of English, you have the vocab. But I would argue the same with SEO and data science. Data science is actually highly creative. But if you don't learn the building blocks like you do in English, how can you be creative in something that you don't have enough of an understanding of? So if you're very good at data science, you're going to be much better at analyzing content that works and doesn't work. So when it comes to preparing content briefs, or at least having a contribution to a content discussion, you're going to be extremely well prepared if you apply the data science on content data, right? I'm not saying data science is going to make you a better writer, but it's certainly going to make you much better at working with creatives that do produce the content, because you can help empower them.
Andreas Voniatis is founder at Artius, and you can find him over at artius.io. Andreas, thanks so much for being part of SEO in 2025.
Thank you.
I've been your host, David Bain. Get your copy of SEO in 2025, the book, over at SEOin2025.com.